A poor mom gets lost at the airport, but a beautiful man insists she takes a different flight. Once upon a time, in a bustling city in Africa, Amina Adisa held her young son Kofi's small, sweaty hand as she dragged her worn-out suitcase through the crowded halls of Murtala Muhammad Airport. Her messy braids fell over her tired eyes and her legs ached after the long bus ride from Ojuelegba. Dressed in a simple blouse and faded wrappa, she felt out of place among the well-dressed travelers rushing past, rolling sleek luggage behind them and chatting on their shiny smartphones. "Mama, I'm hungry," Kofi whined, his 5-year-old body feeling heavier than usual after hours of navigating the city's chaotic public transport. "Just a little longer, my love," she replied, glancing again at the crumpled ticket in her hand. Gate D12, or was it D21? The numbers blurred before her exhausted eyes. Worn down from a week of double shifts at the market, this flight to Accra was her last hope. A job interview that could finally get them out of the tiny room they shared, where they slept on a mat on the floor. Amina had saved for 6 months to buy these tickets, working extra hours selling goods during the day and cleaning offices at night. She had sold almost everything of value, including the gold bracelet she once treasured, as a reminder of a life that now felt like it belonged to someone else. The job in Accra promised a salary that could give Kofi a better life, far from the struggles they had faced in Lagos ever since his father left, leaving nothing but debts and broken dreams. The weight of the single suitcase she carried seemed to multiply with every step. Inside it, along with their few clothes, was the only dress she had managed to buy from a second-hand shop, her armor for the interview that could change their lives. The seams were slightly frayed, but she had spent the previous night carefully stitching them under the dim glow of a kerosene lamp after Kofi had fallen asleep. When she finally spotted what she believed to be the correct gate, Amina let out a sigh of relief. Her back ached and her stomach growled. She had skipped breakfast to save money for Kofi's snack. She approached the counter, where a bored-looking airline employee typed rapidly on her computer. "Good afternoon," Amina said, her voice betraying the nervousness she was trying to hide. "Flight 367 to Accra." The employee barely glanced up. Name? Amina Adisa and Kofi Adisa. The sound of keys clicking filled the tense silence. The employee frowned, her fingers moving swiftly across the keyboard. "I'm sorry, but I don't see these names on the list." Amina's heart pounded, and a cold sweat trickled down her back. "There must be a mistake. I bought the tickets 3 weeks ago." Her hands trembled as she fumbled for the confirmation. Email on her old, cracked phone, a gift from her elderly neighbor who couldn't bear the thought of her being without a way to communicate. It was at that moment that a deep, gentle voice spoke from behind her. "Are you sure you're at the right flight?" Amina turned around and found herself face to face with a tall man in a well-tailored agbada. His kind eyes seemed to see right through her fragile mask of confidence. He exuded a calm certainty that sharply contrasted with her rising panic. "Yes, I'm sure," she replied, showing him the email. "Flight 367 to Accra, 3:30 p.m. The man, who introduced himself as Chinedu Okonkwo, examined the email with a practiced eye. "This is gate D21, not D12. And your flight," he checked his watch smoothly, "took off half an hour ago." The world seemed to collapse around Amina. Her legs went weak, and she had to grab the counter to keep from falling. The interview was in 3 hours, her only chance to start over, to give Kofi the bedroom he had always dreamed of, to never again have to choose between paying rent or buying medicine when he got sick. Sensing his mother's distress, Kofi clung tightly to her leg. "Mama?" he asked, his small, worried voice cutting through Amina's heart like a knife. Chinedu observed the scene for a moment, his gaze softening as he noticed the signs of hard work on Amina's hands and the worn-out sandals on Kofi's feet. "Ngozi," he addressed the airline employee, his voice carrying natural authority. "Are there seats available on the next flight to Accra?" "Yes, Mr. Okonkwo." "Please transfer my miles for 2 seats on that flight." He turned to Amina, who stared at him in disbelief and hesitation. "I can't let you miss that interview." "But how did you—" "I overheard your phone conversation while I was waiting in line. I'm the CEO of a consulting firm, and I recognize determination when I see it. You crossed the entire city with your son for this opportunity. That says a lot about your character." Amina shook her head, tears threatening to fall. "I can't accept this. It's too much. I don't even know you." "You can and you will," Chinedu replied with a warm smile that lit up his dark eyes. "Think of it as an investment in your future, and Kofi's. Besides," he added with a touch of humor, "I have way too many miles and nowhere to go." As the airline employee processed the transfer, Chinedu insisted on buying snacks for Kofi and asked Amina to tell him more about herself. She found herself opening up about her 3 jobs, the nights she spent studying online after Kofi fell asleep, dreaming of something better, and how the interview in Accra could be the fresh start they so desperately needed. "You know," Chinedu said thoughtfully, adjusting his agbada, "my company has a branch in Accra. Maybe we should stay in touch, see if there's an opportunity that matches your skills." The boarding announcement for the new flight echoed through the terminal before Amina could fully process his words. Chinedu helped her with her suitcase and handed her a business card, his smile making her heart race for reasons entirely different from the anxiety she had felt earlier. Once on the plane, Kofi quickly fell asleep against her shoulder, and Amina allowed herself to cry. This time not out of despair, as she had so many nights alone in their tiny room, but out of gratitude. For the first time in a long while, she felt hope. Chinedu's card sat heavy in her pocket like a promise that sometimes angels appear wearing expensive agbadas in busy airports. And maybe, just maybe, fate had bigger plans for that day than just a simple job interview. Chinedu Okonkwo couldn't get Amina Adisa out of his head during his virtual meeting with investors. As they discussed numbers and market projections on his state-of-the-art laptop, his mind kept drifting back to the determined look in her eyes mixed with the vulnerability she so desperately tried to hide. The stark contrast between his corporate world and her reality hit him harder than he expected. Sitting in his temporary office at the airport, a space reserved for traveling executives, he found himself typing her name into LinkedIn. The search led him to a modest yet impressive profile: online business management courses completed in the early hours of the morning, certifications in business software, and glowing recommendations from former employers, all while raising a child alone. Every accomplishment listed told a story of perseverance that made his own successes feel almost too easy. "Mr. Okonkwo?" His virtual assistant's voice interrupted his thoughts. "The Accra branch is on the line." He adjusted his agbada, a nervous habit he had developed over years of building his business empire. "Put them through." On the screen, familiar faces of executives appeared, all waiting for his direction. But for the first time in years, his mind wasn't fully on the spreadsheets and charts that usually consumed his days. Meanwhile, miles above the ground, Amina was trying to keep her hands steady as she reviewed her notes for the interview. The paper was already crumpled from being read and reread, each underlined word representing hours of late-night studying. Kofi was still asleep, his little head resting on her lap, drooling slightly on the wrapper she had carefully ironed the night before using an old borrowed iron from her neighbor. A flight attendant approached with a kind smile, carrying an extra blanket. First time flying? She asked, noticing the tension in Amina's shoulders and the way she gripped the armrests every time the plane hit the slightest turbulence. That obvious? Amina replied with a nervous laugh, adjusting her seatbelt for what felt like the 5th time. Her hands still trembled slightly, a mix of anxiety about the flight and the high-stakes interview ahead. Don't worry, sweetheart. I was a single mom too. I know how hard it can be, the flight attendant, whose name tag read Funka, said, handing her an extra packet of biscuits for Kofi. Your little boy is adorable. He reminds me of my Tunde when he was that age. Same dreamy expression. Amina smiled, grateful for the unexpected kindness. It was rare to meet people who truly understood her situation. How did you do it? Raise him on your own, I mean. Funka sat down in the empty seat beside her, taking advantage of a quiet moment in the flight. Her eyes held years of experience and understanding. One day at a time, and by accepting help when it was offered. You know, sometimes the universe places angels in our path when we need them most. She glanced meaningfully at the business card Amina had been absent-mindedly turning between her fingers, its edges now worn. The comment made Amina blush. Chinadu, Mr. Okonkwo was just being kind. He's probably already forgotten we exist. Funka hummed knowingly, a teasing smile playing on her lips. 15 years as a flight attendant has taught me to read people. That man doesn't do just anything. CEOs don't usually give up their miles for strangers, let alone buy snacks for kids they don't know. Right then, Kofi stirred awake, rubbing his sleepy eyes with tiny fists. Mama, are we in Accra yet? He mumbled, his voice groggy. Not yet, my love. 1 more hour, Amina said, smoothing down his messy curls, trying not to think about how much he looked like his father. In moments like this, Funka stood gracefully, her professional demeanor returning. I'll bring some juice for this little guy and maybe some tea for Mama. As Kofi happily sipped his drink, leaving a sticky mustache that Amina wiped away with a napkin, she let herself think about Chinedu. There was something in his eyes, a mix of strength and kindness that intrigued her. The way he looked at Kofi, not with pity but with genuine interest. She shook her head, pushing those thoughts away. Her life was already complicated enough, without adding romantic fantasies into the mix. Back at the airport, Chinedu was wrapping up his video conference with a decision made. Neka, I need you to adjust my schedule. But sir, the meeting in Abuja tomorrow, reschedule it. I'll be in Accra for the next 2 days. His tone left no room for debate. A pause, then a sigh. This has something to do with the woman from the airport, the one with the little boy? Chinedu smirked, appreciating the sharp intuition of his longtime assistant. Maybe. But we also have that pending audit at the Accra branch, don't we? The audit that wasn't scheduled until next month? That's the one, he confirmed, already shutting his laptop with quiet determination. Oh, and Neka, book a table for 3 at La Palme tonight. Something comfortable, not too formal. A quiet section. 3, sir? Yes, a 5-year-old will be joining us. Make sure they have a kids menu. On the plane, the captain announced the descent into Accra. Amina straightened her slightly wrinkled blouse as best as she could, her stomach twisting with nerves. The interview was at a mid-sized company for an administrative position. The salary wasn't extravagant, but it was stable and came with benefits, including health insurance for Kofi, something she had dreamed of providing for him. Mama, look, the clouds look like Puff Puff. Kofi pressed his face against the window, leaving tiny fingerprints that Amina discreetly wiped away. She smiled, amazed at her son's ability to find joy in the smallest things. Even on the hardest nights when dinner was nothing but Gary and soup, when money barely stretched to cover the essentials, Kofi never lost his spark. The plane touched down smoothly, and Funka helped Amina with her bag, discreetly slipping a card with her number into Amina's hand. "For when you need a friend in Accra," she explained with a warm, motherly smile. "We all need a support system." As they walked through the terminal, Amina's phone buzzed. Her heart stopped at the message. Her interviewer was sick. The meeting had to be rescheduled for the next day. "No, no, no," she murmured, panic rising. Her tight budget hadn't accounted for a hotel night in Accra. She barely had enough for a taxi to the company. Her phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. "Heard your interview got rescheduled. The La Palme Hotel near the airport is expecting you and Kofi. Dinner at 7 p.m. at La Palme. Great food, family-friendly atmosphere. This isn't charity. It's networking." Chinedu. Amina froze, rereading the message over and over. How did he know? Why did he care? More importantly, should she accept? "Mama, where are we going now?" Kofi asked, his little hand squeezing hers, trusting that she, as always, had all the answers. Amina looked at her son, then at her phone, and finally at Chinedu's now creased business card. Sometimes Funk was right. Help should be accepted when it came. But as she typed her response, she couldn't help but wonder. Was this just professional assistance, or was her long-asleep heart beginning to wake up to something else entirely? The La Palme Hotel lobby was overwhelming for Amina, who held tightly onto Kofi's hand as they approached the reception desk. Her reflection in the polished marble revealed a woman completely out of place. The worn-out suitcase, the simple clothes, the exhaustion etched into her face. "Reservation under Adisa," she said softly, still unsure about this whole situation. The receptionist gave her a professional smile. "Ah, yes, the executive suite. Mr. Okonkwo left specific instructions." She handed over 2 key cards. "Room service is available 24/7, and we've arranged some outfits for your interview as requested." Amina blinked, confused. "Outfits?" "A fashion consultant. Dropped off a few options an hour ago. They're in your room, up on the 12th floor." Amina opened the door and had to grab Kofi before he ran excitedly toward the massive floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city. The room was larger than their entire space in Ojuelegba. On the king-sized bed, 3 sets of professional outfits were neatly laid out, all in her size, complete with matching shoes and accessories. "Look, Mama, there are presents for me too," Kofi shouted, discovering a bag with new clothes and a few educational toys inside. Amina sat on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed. Chinedu's generosity seemed to have no limits, and that terrified her. No one did this much for a stranger without expecting something in return. Her ex-husband had taught her that lesson in the most painful way. Her phone buzzed with another message from Chinedu. "Hope the room is suitable. Driver will pick you up at 6:30 p.m. for dinner. No pressure, just a meal and conversation." She stared at the screen for several long minutes before making a decision. "Kofi, how about a bath? We're having dinner somewhere really special tonight." La Palme Restaurant, 7 p.m. The restaurant was quiet, elegant without being intimidating. When they arrived, Chinedu was already there, having swapped his formal agbada for a more relaxed shirt and trousers. His smile was warm as he saw Kofi happily bouncing in his new clothes. "You didn't have to do all this," Amina said as they sat down. She had chosen the simplest outfit, a classic navy blue dress that hugged her figure just enough to make her feel put together. "Actually, I did," Chinedu said, helping Kofi with the kids' menu. I looked into your professional background today. It's impressive considering the circumstances. But Accra can be a tough city for fresh starts. The dinner went surprisingly well. Kofi was enchanted when the chef himself came to prepare his dessert at the table, and Amina found herself laughing more than she had in months. Chinedu had a way of making people feel at ease. His stories about business disasters made her realize that even successful people had their struggles. Then her phone rang. The company where she was supposed to interview. Hello? She answered, stepping away from the table. The news hit like a punch to the gut. The position had been filled internally. The interview was canceled. Chinedu noticed the shift in her expression the moment she returned. Amina, what's wrong? It's over, she whispered, fighting back tears. The job, her voice cracked. Mama? Kofi's small, worried voice broke her heart. Chinedu discreetly signaled to a waiter, who immediately offered to take Kofi on a quick tour of the kitchen. Tell me, Chinedu said gently once they were alone. Amina broke down. She told him everything. The months of preparation, the nights spent studying, the money she had saved, sacrificed, stretched as far as possible. How this job had meant everything. A real chance at a better life for Kofi, away from the constant struggle of Lagos. Chinedu listened silently, his face unreadable, his hands folded in front of him. When she finally finished, he leaned forward and spoke carefully. Maybe the universe has other plans. What plans? She scoffed. Going back to my tiny room, juggling 3 underpaid jobs again? Or, he exhaled as if making a big decision, you could accept a position at my company. Amina froze. What? The Accra branch needs a project manager for community initiatives, someone who understands real challenges, who has lived through struggles and knows how to solve problems that most executives never have to face. Her pulse quickened. But I don't have experience. You have all the experience that matters. His voice was firm. I saw your LinkedIn, the online courses, the certifications, all completed while balancing multiple jobs and raising a child alone. That shows more determination and management skills than any MBA. Amina felt like the room was spinning. Why are you doing this? She asked, almost afraid of the answer. Chinedu held her gaze, his dark eyes steady. Because I believe in investing in extraordinary people. Then, after a brief hesitation, he added, and because maybe I'm a little tired of eating dinner alone in expensive restaurants. The moment was interrupted by Kofi, who came running back wearing a paper chef's hat with a proud grin on his face. Something between Amina and Chinedu had shifted. Back at the hotel, Amina tucked Kofi into bed and sat beside him, watching his peaceful face as he slept. Chinedu's job offer echoed in her mind. It was tempting. So tempting. A stable job, a fresh start, security. But years of disappointment and betrayal had taught her to be cautious. 2 questions, she whispered to herself. Things that seemed too good to be true. Her phone buzzed one last time that night. A message. The offer is real. The job is yours because of your skills, not charity. But I understand if you need time to decide. Either way, the hotel is covered for the week. Rest, think. Kofi loved the chef's hat. Chinedu. Amina lay back on the bed, her emotions a storm inside her. In less than 24 hours, her life had completely flipped. First, the devastation of the interview being canceled, now the unexpected door that had opened. One that promised not just financial stability, but maybe, just maybe, something more. The real problem? She wasn't sure what scared her more. The possibility of taking a risk on this opportunity, or the fact that her heart raced every time she thought about Chinedu's gentle smile. The next morning, Amina woke up to the sound of childish laughter. Kofi was pressed against the hotel window, watching the airplanes take off against the Accra skyline. The rising sun painted the city in hues of gold and pink, so different from the gray view of their Lagos room. "Mama, can we live here?" Kofi asked innocently, his eyes shining with the hope of a new life. Amina sat up in bed, deep in thought. Chinedu's offer had been stuck in her mind all night. She had spent hours researching his company, Okonkwo Consulting Group. It was respected, with a strong presence in community programs and diversity initiatives. The job was real. She had found the position officially listed on their corporate website. Her phone rang. Funk, the flight attendant. "How are you, sweetheart?" The familiar motherly voice made Amina's chest tighten. She broke down, telling Funka everything: the canceled interview, the unexpected job offer, her fears and insecurities. "You know," Funka said after listening carefully, "when I met my second husband, I was so hurt from my first that I almost let happiness slip away. Sometimes the universe breaks us first to prepare us for something better. But what if I'm reading this all wrong? What if it's just gratitude I'm feeling?" "Honey," Funka chuckled knowingly, "I saw the way you two looked at each other on that plane. That wasn't gratitude. It was a connection." A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. A message from room service. Breakfast was being served on the rooftop. Amina arrived to find a perfectly arranged table, pancakes for Kofi, and a folder full of documents for her. Among the papers, she found not just the official job offer, but also information on nearby schools for Kofi, available apartments in the area, and a handwritten note. No pressure, just possibilities. Chinedu. Amina spent the morning going through every detail. The salary was more than enough to give Kofi the life he deserved. Full health benefits, an education fund, flexible hours. It all seemed too perfect. Her phone buzzed again. "Care for a coffee? Promise I won't talk about work. The cafe, 3 p.m. Chinedu." Chinedu was waiting for her in the hotel lobby, looking more relaxed in jeans and a shirt. As they walked to a small coffee shop nearby, Kofi happily jumped between them, holding both their hands, splashing in the puddles left from the morning rain. "You know," Chinedu started once they were settled and Kofi was happily distracted with a giant cookie, "I don't usually do this." "Do what?" "Offer jobs to strangers," Amina teased. "No," he chuckled. "Get personally involved." Amina's heart skipped a beat. "Chinedu, let me finish," he said gently. "When I saw you at the airport, something changed. It wasn't pity or charity. It was recognition of someone who, like me, had to fight for everything in life." She blinked in surprise. "You?" "I grew up in a small village in Enugu," he admitted. "My mother worked 3 jobs, just like you. I got through school on scholarships, sold ground nuts to pay for college. The only difference is someone believed in me at the right time." Kofi came back to the table, his face covered in chocolate. Without thinking, Amina wiped it away with a napkin, the instinctive motherly gesture making Chinedu smile. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Because I want you to understand that the job offer is real. It's based on your qualifications." He hesitated for just a second before adding, "But my feelings are real too." Amina felt the air leave her lungs. "This is complicated. There's Kofi who, by the way, just asked me if he can call you Uncle Chi. Chinedu laughed. Amina covered her face, groaning. Oh my God. Look, Chinedu said, his voice soft but certain. I'm not asking for anything except a chance to get to know you, both of you, properly. No pressure, no expectations. Amina stared at him, her walls crumbling. And if it doesn't work out, she whispered, the job is yours no matter what. Contract signed, no conditions. Whatever happens beyond that, well, we'll figure it out. At that moment, Kofi spilled his juice, staining his brand new shirt. Instead of getting annoyed, Chinedu helped clean up, making silly faces that had Kofi giggling uncontrollably. Amina watched them, feeling something warm and unfamiliar spread through her chest. Maybe, she thought, maybe I don't have to do everything alone anymore. She took a deep breath. Yes, she said softly. Chinedu's eyes lit up. Yes for everything. The job, Accra, she exhaled, and the chance. Chinedu's smile could have lit up the entire city. Kofi, sensing the joy in the air, jumped between them. Can we have more juice to celebrate? 3 months later, Amina sat at her new desk at Okonkwo Consulting, finishing a presentation on corporate support programs for single mothers. A framed photo of Kofi decorated her office, along with a small plant, a gift from Chinedu on her first day. Kofi was thriving at his new school. Their apartment, though small, was warm and safe, and for the first time ever, he had a room of his own, filled with books and toys. On weekends, Chinedu took them to museums, parks, or they simply spent lazy afternoons cooking together. Life's detours often lead us to the destinations we were truly meant to reach. Sometimes missed opportunities are divine redirections toward something even greater. Hard work, resilience, and faith can open doors we never imagined, and kindness, whether given or received, can change lives in unexpected ways. Above all, we must learn to accept help when it's given with sincerity, for true strength lies not just in perseverance, but also in knowing when to trust in the goodness of others. Ya Allah, the most merciful and the best of planners, guide us when we feel lost, strengthen us when we are weak, and grant us patience when things do not go as we had hoped. Open doors of opportunity for us and our loved ones, and place kind and righteous people in our path who will uplift and support us. Protect those who struggle alone, ease their burdens, and bless them with provision, love, and a future filled with hope. Ya Allah, grant us the wisdom to recognize the blessings in unexpected moments, and the courage to embrace the new paths you set before us. Amin. Funka had been right. Sometimes the universe places angels in our path. But sometimes, Amina thought, as she watched Chinedu and Kofi laughing in the park from her office window, those angels decide to stay. Her phone buzzed with a message. Dinner tonight? Kofi wants to make that jollof rice he saw on the kids' cooking show. Amina smiled, typing her reply. Life wasn't perfect. There were still challenges, still hard days. But now, she wasn't facing them alone. And when Chinedu kissed her for the first time under the twinkling Christmas lights of Accra, with Kofi clapping and yelling "finally" in the background, she knew some flights get delayed for a reason. That busy airport hadn't just changed her career, it had changed her destiny. And for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of the future anymore. Because now her heart, like the airplanes Kofi loved to watch, was finally flying in the right direction.